Hello everyone.
Welcome to the Spirit Lounge podcast with me, David.
And me, Glenda.
And we are psychic mediums from both sides of the pond.
I'm in Australia.
And I'm in the UK.
And we're joining forces to discuss and talk about the world of psychics, mediumship, and all things spiritual. We might even throw some random life topics in there too.
So come with us now on our podcast journey. Let's see what's happening in the Spirit Lounge for today's episode. Well, hello listeners, and welcome to the Spirit Lounge once again. And I'm here with Glenda, looking glowing and glamorous over there in Australia. How are you?
Good. How are you, David? Yes, I've been in the pool, enjoying the sun over here. How's the weather over there?
I can tell. How dare you? We're starting to get a little bit chilly now, and our radiators don't work downstairs, so I've got to sort that one out before winter really hits. But actually, it's not too cold. I've got to be honest. It's been chilly, but it's not been as cold as you'd expect this time of year. But here we are sitting talking about the weather when we've got a nice guest online with us. So let's change that subject quite quickly. So, Glenda, tell us, who have we got in the Spirit Lounge with us today?
Well, everybody, you're in for a treat. I was going to start with introducing our special guest, Nick, but I'm just going to start with Nick. Used to be my partner and co-host on SPTV. Oh my God, did we get in trouble back in the day? But today, everyone, we have our Reverend Nick Brown, a spiritualist medium, spiritualist minister, medium, writer and speaker with over 30 years of experience in the spiritualist movement. As the founder of the Bishop Primate of, is that how you say it? Primate of Independent Specialist Alliance. Reverend Brown brings a wealth of knowledge and insight to our conversation with a passionate approach that focuses on understanding, connection and discernment. He's here to share his perspectives and experiences with us. Nick has got a wealth of knowledge. He's been on SPTV. What can I say? He's got his, the Two Revs?
The Two Revs, yeah. We then did a sequel, The Two Revs Ride Again. That caused a stir. So yeah, we've been about, I think is the way to put it, you know.
Welcome, Nick. And
hello.
We met on SPTV, and when I was over in the UK, we organised a special and we did a massive demonstration. So it was 5 of us together at your spiritualist church. So we all got to work together. What a fab night that was. Oh my God.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's been it seems like forever, and it's probably because it has been. It certainly feels that way. But yeah, we all got together, of course, in the village hall for the big demo. Of course, we had our time on the lovely SPTV doing the morning show, which was, you know, a really, really great opportunity and way of learning the trade of interviewing. And of course, David has served Littleport and the area before even the SPTV days, because he used to stalk and strut around the area, same as what I do. But yes, you did pronounce it right. It is primate as in monkey. That's how I always remember it. It's just been a weird ride, and I'm not overly fussed in titles, to be fair. It's just a way of identifying what my job is at the end of the day. But yeah, medium and minister tend to cover the whole megillah of what I do nowadays, teaching and speaking and speaking and speaking. Because apparently I've got a gob on me, so feel free to make use of it today.
Oh, shocking. But Nick, don't you also have your own podcast as well? Or did I?
Yeah.
If I had a short series called Soul Perspective.
Yeah.
That went quite well. I did enjoy it, but then my own personal circumstances changed, and I had to refocus my attention. So I haven't been podcasting for a few months now, but I'm in the middle of doing some other projects, and once they're complete, I want to get back into it properly and stable. Because I think, I don't know whether you guys have this problem. I certainly did. You spend so much time trying to get the technical side right, and the how does this work, and how's that going to work, and how can I make that happen, that you then tend to get distracted from the actual work itself. And that was the problem I had. And it, because I was having that distraction, it didn't feel right. So I thought, right, leave it alone. I mean, I've bought myself a screen because I spent so much time worrying about what was in the background. Well, now I don't have to worry. So, you know, I think for me, the problem became I became too obsessed with the details that really didn't matter spiritually. So, oh, you must wear this, and you must look like that, and you must sound like this, and you got to have that, and got. I just, you know what? No, I can't be doing with that. So it's about finding that balance. And once I've got my other projects out the way, and once I've found that balance, I'll be back podcasting again, because I also need to spend some more time with TikTok, which I see you two doing a great deal of fun on. But I do need to reassert myself on some of the socials. It's funny, when I worked in petrol stations, I used to get beaten around the head for playing on social media too much. And now it's my job. You know, without social media, I wouldn't have a job to do. So it's a bit weird spending so much time on social media, but it's also fun. But yeah, that's pretty much it. The podcast is still out there on all the usual locations, but I did step away from it for a while to get other things done.
Well, that's life, isn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
So, Nick, let's go back to your journey into spiritualism and how you became a spiritual minister. Like, how old were you? Whereabouts in life were you? How did this all evolve?
Well, to be honest with you, there are a couple of key moments that really kick-started the journey that I would say are what I tend to use the word waypoints. So these, when you look back, they're really strong indicators of what was going to come. And for me, the first memory that I didn't know at the time was spending time as a child, about 3 or 4, talking to my great grandmother. She used to sit in a chair by the window at my nan's house, which was an old converted pub. It was the White Hart Tap in Ely. It's now been bulldozed and replaced by a dentist's or something. But it was a really, really old, a big cellar where they used to keep the beer barrels, and it was just a maze, a warren. And I used to sit in the living room talking to my great grandmother. I found out years later that that particular lady passed away 6 months before I was born. So that was a pretty big clue. Then there was that gentleman who walked through the wall into the Wendy house that I was in at nursery school. Yes, I used to sit and play in the Wendy house, and yes, I did play mother. And there was this figure just walked through the wall. And rather than anything rational or sensible, bear in mind I was about 5 or 6, I looked up at him and go, if you keep walking through walls, you're going to bump into people. You know, that was my rationale. And his answer was, if I can walk through walls, I don't have to worry about people. And I didn't see him again for ages. Then the real, I think, linchpin moment was I was around about 14 and I'd watched something a bit spooky. It was back in the day when the fly on the wall mockumentaries weren't a thing. There was this ghost hunt for Halloween. Michael Parkinson, Sarah Green, Craig Charles. That drove me mental. Seriously, my mental health suffered massively for watching that, because 14 years old, a little bit sheltered in terms of life, it just drove me absolutely crazy, and it started triggering things. I could hear voices calling my name down the hallway, and I ended up having around about 2 months off school. It was the beginning of my GCSE year. I had about 2 months off school, was under doctors, medicated, massive nervous breakdown. When I eventually got back to school, I walked in. I was a big drama buff. No surprises there, I know. I used to love being in the drama studio, and Mr. Cobley and Mr. Boland, they used to let a group of us use the drama studio at lunchtimes. I ended up training as a drama teacher at one point. Did my teacher training starter there as community service. When you're in sixth form, you do something called 2 sessions of community service rather than going to clubs and going to shooting and stuff like that. I went and taught drama to the first years, which was absolutely amazing. And as a trade-off for all of that, we got to use the drama studio at lunch. And I went in about a week back, and he goes, I heard what's been going on. Mr. Brian Cobley was one of the most austere and gravelly voiced actors you could meet. And he stands there and goes, I know what's been going on. And I went, oh, right. He says, Nick, the only thing to fear is fear itself. And I just looked so blankly at him for so long. He just scowled and went, get your backside down the library and read up about it, love. And so I did, and I found out that that particular show was based on the Enfield hauntings.
Yeah.
That it was massively dramatized, not only in style and action, but also in Pipes, the main character. He wasn't an evil, cruel poltergeist at all. He was just someone who was lonely and needed, a bit of help and healing. And so I learned all about that, and then I got into witchcraft. I became a Wicca. I was invited into a coven at one point. When you live in a place called Ely, that's surrounded by Coveney, Wiccan, and Witchford, which we don't talk about Witchford too much, there's a lot of it going on around here. In actual fact, Dr. John Dee was sent to keep an eye on the heathen presence when they were draining the fens, and I think he went a little bit native himself. But I became a practicing Wicca. Then I got a bit of a reputation for knowing about the weird and wonderful. Because of all of this, I got this reputation. And I was on the committee of the sports centre at the time. And 2 ladies, Lynn Guest DeSwart, and Kathy Gibb, they'd moved up from London. They worked in a place that was called Stansted Hall. They worked for something called the Psychic News. And nobody round here knew what that was. Even though it's only 45 minutes down the road, nobody really knew what that was. And the chairman of the committee turns around and he goes, Nick, need a favour. And I went, what's that? He goes, there's a couple of women want to open up something called a spiritualist church in the bottom bar. And I went, oh, right, okay, Mick. You're into all that weird stuff. Go along, keep an eye on them, make sure they ain't summoning anything they shouldn't. So I did. I made tea. As a member of the committee, I knew where everything was, so they invited me to make tea. It wasn't till years later I found out, as a spiritualist, being invited to make the tea is a huge honour. Sadly, the Lynn came up to me after the service and said, so did you enjoy yourself? Oh, yes, I did. Do you think you'll be coming back? Yes, definitely will. Perhaps we could find a new job for you then, because most of the congregation are referring to your tea as Nat's piss. So they made me treasurer instead, and I never looked back. 18 months after that, Lynn and Kathy moved down the south coast, and I was voted in as president of that church. 4.5 years later, I decided to join the circuit, and then I had a bit of a break for a few years. Then Lynn came back to town and said, I've changed direction a bit. And I went, oh, what's that mean? She says, well, I'm actually a Christian spiritualist. And I went, oh, you caught up eventually then? Because I always considered myself a Christian spiritualist. It's not that I could not let go of my Christian upbringing, because I didn't have a very strong Christian upbringing. It's just that I saw the spiritualism and the spirituality in the original teachings of that way of life, and wasn't prepared to let that go because I saw value in it. And so what I spent 6 months training with her because she'd already been training me all that time anyway as a medium. And we got polished up, practiced up, and a few years later, I was ordained as a minister. And here we are now. I'm founder of an independent spiritualist organization that's got ministers internationally, darling. Because one of them is in France. The lovely Sherry Ann. I've got stop me if I rattle on too much, but this was hilarious. Sherry Ann, bless her, she joined one of my circles back in the day when we first met, and another SPTV alumni. We met through Reverend Ashley Oliver. So because she was originally from the South Coast, bit of a giveaway. So I see France, Sherry Ann, and thinking there's going to be some lady come on the screen, and you know how you get this idea in your head of what people are going to be like, and how am I going to cope with a French accent, this, that, and the other. She comes up on screen, I kid you not, and her first words are, "Hello, are you all right, Nick?" Because she was originally from Wiltshire. So all of these conceptions that I had about how am I going to cope with a French accent, it was a Wiltshire accent, which was great. But yeah, because Sherry went through the training with a few others, she's now one of our ministers. So we can say we've got a minister outside of the UK. But we've got ministers all over the place now, and we're growing. And the influence is growing because it's not a financial or a dictatorial alliance. It's a case of this is an umbrella under which you can sit and protect yourself from the rain. We're there to support each other and look after each other, but you have sovereign rights to run your own church your way, so long as they align with the principles of spiritualism. I'm not just talking about the 7. I'm talking about the original ones, the 10 spiritual commandments, which Emma Hardinge Britten called them, and the 10 laws of right, which all became summarized into the 7 principles. That was good, and it's a lot easier to remember, but I personally felt a lot was lost with that. In particular, number 10 of the 10 spiritual commandments, in the 10 ways of living. Know that where love exists and is manifested, all other principles are fulfilled and kept sacred by its presence. In other words, you don't actually need to remember all of the other 9. Just so long as you manifest love, you're doing all of them. And so that doesn't really get pushed in your face with the 7 principles. So that's why admittedly, I did spend quite a bit of time removing Victoriana from them, because she was a Victorian and the language was very Victorian, and the these and thous and theys and thous, and the last thing you want to be is a Christian spiritualist minister promoting something that says thou in it. You will be lynched. So we modernize the language and adopt them as the rules of the organization. That's it. There's no money changing hands within the alliance side. It's just a group of people coming together with common cause and intent, and it seems to be going quite well. Like I said, there are 27 rules, and that's it, and there never will be anything else, because we're not going down the route of being financial. It's an umbrella support group for like-minded people, and that is good enough for me, and it seems to be good enough for a few others anyway, and that's where we are today. So 30 years in, 5 minutes? Not too bad.
So what would you say sets, we call it, do you want to call it the church or the hall, or what are we going to call it? The church or the hall?
I know people get a bit piddly about different terminologies. It must be this, must be that. Call it what you like. It's a church, it's a hall, it's a group.
Yeah.
I've never had a worry about. So interchange as much as you like.
So what do you find sets your hall apart, or your church, to the different ones around? the UK? What is so unique? How do you guys make it so unique? Because I thought it was wonderful being there.
I think that the size and shape and dimensions of and the look of the hall itself as the fabric of the building really does help. It's kind of like turn of the century architecture with a splash of modern. So it's a nice scene. It's a nice setting. That's always a good start because they always say first impressions count. I think there are, for me personally, it might be different for other people, but for me personally, as an individual, looking in at how it works and why it works, is three really key things. And this is going to be a weird one, so bear with me. Number one, it's ministry led. Ministry led means there's no committee. No committee means there's no competition as to who's right, who's wrong, and what's going to be done. The way I run my ministry is that of service, not leadership. So the whole congregation is the committee. Everyone who walks in, whether they've been coming in a week or a month or 10 years, they have a say in how that church is run, and they will all have these little, you can see it, I always know because my ears start burning, and there's this little huddle of 5 people and they're looking over their shoulder at me. They've all come up with an idea together, and then they nominate somebody. They come up and say, Nick, can we do this? And if we've never tried it before, my instant answer is, yeah, let's do it. If we have tried it before, I will say, well, we need to be cautious because the last time we did it, this happened, this happened, this happened. But if you can find a workaround for that, we've already thought of that. What about if we did it this way? Let's do it. I don't lead the group. I shepherd, I suppose. You know, the sheep in the scenario of a sheep and the shepherd, the sheep pretty much go how and where they want to go. The shepherd's there to keep them safe from falling off the edge of a cliff. And I see my role very much in that way. I'm there to advise caution and guidance, and to have a final say if there's a split. But most of the time it's run by the congregation, not by me. So there's no arguments about who's right, who's wrong, who's got the final say, and all of that stuff. Don't get me wrong, I've been in some brilliant committees and I've been really lucky in committees. But committee can sometimes cause division and separation of groups. And that for me is the second thing. We don't have little small cliques within the church. Everyone jumps across and intermingles. I did notice when we rearranged the hall, and the chairs were in 2 separate blocks. So one walkway down the middle, and then 2 separate groups of chairs. And it started like there were cliques forming. It wasn't that they were cliques, but it was the beginnings of, because everyone who sat on that side talked to each other. Everyone who sat on that side talked to each other. And I thought, you know what? Nobody's getting bloody married. Screw it. Get rid of the gap down the middle. They came in. What's all this? Oh, just trying something new. Last we spoke about it, and there were no separations anymore. So the church group, the congregation, the family, as we call it, they tend to intermix, intermingle. You know, we've got someone who brings cheesy pizza straws and cheese on sticks and sandwiches. Another one who makes some damn awesome cakes, brings them. Everyone brings a little bit, adds to it, makes it their own, feels a part of it. But nobody other than Mother, who does the door, has got an absolute set role. Anyone can do anything as and when they want to help out. And I think really the final thing that sets us apart is we don't take ourselves too seriously. I think that's a big one for me. In a world, I mean, you look out into the world that we live in, not just within the spiritualist movement, although I have to say, worryingly, it's becoming a thing. But in society in general, people tend to put being right above being accurate. And what I mean by that is, my way is the highway. I've got to be the one who has the final answer. I'm the one who knows how it works, and everybody else is wrong, in spite of that astoundingly huge stack of evidence that's stacking up against me. And that really, really bugs me. But at Littleport in particular, but especially because Littleport in itself isn't just Littleport. You know, you've got all the surrounding areas where people come to it, but you've also got people who watch online. We never stopped pressing the live button. In fact, we were recording and live streaming the first part of the service before the mediumship for 3 years before the pandemic. It wasn't very technical. It was a block of wood holding me phone up, but that was enough, you know. Our medium secretary at the time, she was bedridden and could never come to church. So I thought she's got to share in some of it at least. So we live streamed the first part. We've always had a pretty decent following online. Sometimes you look at the numbers on the night and it's like, oh, there aren't very many people on. Then we forget that we've got people in South Africa who had relatives who came to the church. They still watch after coming over and sorting out the estate. So we've got people all over the place who watch in their own time, quite literally. So I think not taking yourself too seriously, because we muck about, we have a laugh. I'm reminded we're now in the middle of getting ready to dress up for fancy dress for Halloween. That's always a big thing. And John Ennis, who's a local medium, he came one year. Mum rung him and said, "You're serving us for a Halloween demo. Just to warn you, everyone's going to be dressed up." Oh, right, okay then. He came to serve us dressed as a werewolf. It was brilliant. People think I'm a bit fussy and don't tend to dress up, more because I forget and I'm lazy. But I have made an effort the last couple of years. But you know, we Christmas last, we had a slumber party for the final service of the year. Everyone came in the gym jams, in onesies, and the front row, my God, they brought sleeping bags, and they spent the first 20 minutes before the service rolling about on the floor in front of the front table in sleeping bags, laughing hysterically. And in fact, one of the things that we've done recently is we've moved the healing circle. We have a healing circle just before the service. They've moved from the little back room behind the stage, what was our dressing room with the private toilet. That box, yes. They've moved it onto the stage, and they do drumming and they laugh. My God, they laugh. So we're all sitting there getting ready, introducing the medium to the order of service, having tea, biscuits, chats. And from behind the curtains, you can hear shamanic drumming and hysterical laughter. And it just sets the tone for the rest of the evening. It's healing, it's uplifting, and it's just fun. I think, to be fair, on a smaller level, we have the reading before the philosophy, because I've always believed that philosophy is mediumship and should be provable in some way. So I'm sure you guys are the same, certainly from being around this area. David, you'll know that the standard order of services, you have the reading and you do the philosophy based off the reading, but you're also supposed to let spirit guide you. So we just turned around and said, you know what, let's put them to the test. Let's have the philosophy and then the reading. Because if spirit are the ones leading the philosophy, then the reading and the philosophy are going to tie in anyway. And it only lets me down when I'm on a rant. Believe it or not, Nick can get on his high horse sometime. And yeah, I can lose my temper sometimes like anybody else. So when I'm having a bad day or a rant, it doesn't tend to tie in. But when I just completely leave it to spirit, it always ties in. And it's such a beautiful way of proving the worth of the philosophy, because We at Littleport have never sacrificed the philosophy for bums on seats. It's got to be short, it's got to be to the point, and it shouldn't be dull and boring. And
Yeah.
it certainly shouldn't be, today I sat on the lavatory and this is what Spirit told me. It should be engaging but down to earth. Uh, and it always works. And then we have healing during the service. So rather than just sending out our thoughts or having a few minutes silence, everyone can put their hand up if they want it, and our healers will come around and actually give healing as part of the service. And I think the people, the location, certainly the people for me, as an individual, you know, for my own self, they are the ones that make it worthwhile for me. They are the ones that make it fun for me. But I think all of those things combined is what makes Littleport what it is, so
Yeah.
to speak. Um,
And it's
I mean,
great
there's
that you've
other things, but those are
explained.
the main ones.
It's great that you've explained a lot of how it works, because a lot of our listeners are from Australia as well, and
Yes.
they wouldn't get to spiritual churches to see how it's run. And if they do, it's the ones here are totally different to the UK. So,
Absolutely.
And I also think
so
that as well, that Nick's church is very different to spiritualist churches, especially when
yeah.
they're attached to an organization, certain organizations. Now, my question, Nick, I just thought as you're talking there, um, there's a lot of stuff going on in the spiritual community at the minute, and you talk about when it comes to committees and the amount of stories I've heard recently and about committees splitting up and arguing over each whatever. Um, that itself is problematic to running a successful spiritualist church, in my opinion. From your perspective, though, being out there and doing what you do, um, what do you see? What do you see at the minute as being problematic in the spiritual community, which is maybe not propelling us forward, but is more setting us back? Do you notice anything out there? What's going on?
Yes, I do. And I think I refer back to something I said earlier, and it might make me unpopular, but you know what? Shit happens. I will speak my truth. It might not resonate with everyone, but I think it probably will resonate with anyone who's experienced the negative side of committees. And it's going back to that absolute simple point of people putting being right above being evidential and factual in terms of the way we conduct ourselves, in the terms of the way things are operated. Look, I serve a mixture of churches that are affiliated to various different organizations, independents, and once or twice a year, because one of them's so far away, I will go all the way up to Rotherham, which is like a 3-hour
Oh
drive,
wow!
to serve the church that we've got up there. Because, you know, being the bishop monkey, you got to put in an appearance. So, you know, I've been about and I've seen a lot. You know, I served Cambridge Spiritualist Centre a couple of weeks ago, well, maybe even a couple of months ago now. Time flies when you're having
Yeah,
fun. The last time I'd served that before that was when it was down by the river. So it was, you know, years and years and years had passed. Everyone and everything has changed in terms of attitude, behaviors, and standards in the time that I've been serving. My first demonstration of mediumship on my own on the platform publicly outside of Littleport was around about 27 years ago. So a lot has changed. Um,
mm.
Simple things that are really, really good that have changed. I've got to be fair. A lot of good has changed. Things are much more relaxed in terms of appearance and dress. You know, when I first took the platform, if a man turned up without a shirt and tie, you know, there'd be shock and horror. Now I'll have people in a polo jumper or a polo top and jeans working my platform, and nobody bats an eyelid, because guess what? We value the work over what someone's wearing round their blinking neck. So I think many things have relaxed a lot. I think what's gotten worse, and I think one of the things that actually encouraged me into spiritualism is a facilitator of some of the biggest problems as well, and that is its openness. You know, one of the great things about spiritualism, in particular in this country, and especially with the independent churches, is that it doesn't matter who you are, where you're from, what your background is, or to an extent what you believe, you're always welcome in a spiritualist church. That being said, we must always be polite about what a spiritualist church is and how they conduct their own affairs. What I've noticed is, rather than everyone coming together in common cause, it's, well, I think it should be done this way. Well, I think it should be done this way. Well, my way is right. My way is right. And I've had people say to me, calling a spiritualist church a church is old-fashioned and outdated, and you'll get nobody in. Get rid of the philosophy. It doesn't appeal to anyone. One of the reasons that I'm still in a job after 4 years of working full-time as a medium is because the philosophy is what people need and want. It's about the delivery. But for me, the biggest problem is people coming into the way of life and deciding it can be whatever they wish it to be, rather than what it actually is. There's a really, really crass statement, but it's the only one I can think of. You know, you don't go into someone's house and pee all over their sofa. You respect their sofa and you use the lavatory. But sometimes it feels like people, well, you know, that this is a way of working and this is the way of working. But those new ways of working in modern spirituality is not always compatible with spiritualism. But people see spiritualism as being an extension of spirituality rather than something in its own right. I have absolute respect for those different ways of working. And, you know, we've got someone who's a Buddhist, regularly comes to our church, and she's always made welcome. We always have a good laugh and a good chat and a good discussion afterwards. But I think the respect for what spiritualism has gone, because nobody gave a damn about defending it, because they were more interested in letting things slide for the sake of bums on seats. I have always stood firm in my desire that it should be called a church, because a church is a people, not a building. The church is its people. End of. Full stop. Thank you very much. Not a committee, not a label, not a badge of honor, and certainly not bricks and mortar. The people who come week in, week out, make it worthwhile. They are the church. The philosophy is what guides us and directs us. It's not, you've got to do this. It's this is how you deal with that. But because we sacrificed who we were for the sake of numbers, the water has been muddied and nobody really knows what, you know, spiritualism is. I know people who've joined me in circle. They've been in the way of life and call themselves a spiritualist for a number of years. Never heard of Emma Hardinge Britten, don't know what the 7 principles are, and believe that spiritualists believe in reincarnation. Mm-hmm. I mean, that one's a real... I've got no problem with people believing reincarnation. I actually... my own personal conviction is that there is, as a spiritualist, something in it, just not what people say it is. But I certainly think the experience and what's being seen is very real. It's referred to as spiritual witnessing. So you are seeing the experiences of another person whilst you're in the spirit world. So I'm not saying that those experiences and those images that we see in regressions are not real at all. But spiritualism does not believe in reincarnation as in the cycle of coming back to Earth. So when you say that, you are challenged and you are browbeaten. I have been ridiculed and criticized and told that I'm not a real spiritualist because I don't believe in reincarnation. But I remember the stories about Gordon Higginson and various other people sitting down at Stansted Hall as spiritists and spiritualists trying to find a way for those two organizations to move together, because spiritualism doesn't believe in reincarnation, spiritism does. They couldn't find a way forward that was mutually beneficial for both, so they carried on doing their own thing. So I've got no problem with people coming into Littleport. I encourage it. Come into Littleport and have a conversation about reincarnation. Believe in reincarnation. That's your prerogative. That's your free will. I will defend that till the cows come home. But I'll also defend mine to believe what I want to believe. And I think
loved your thoughts or what you believe in not reincarnation, in regression and things like that. Like we've had our conversations back on SPTV
once or twice. Yeah.
And David still doesn't know where he sits with this sort of stuff either. It's mind-boggling, and I've done a lot of work with it. But I've always respected what you've said, the way that you came across and told me your version of it. Would you like to just tell the listeners what that is? Because I still remember it, and I think it's fantastic. Like, I think this is, if you don't believe in it, or if this is Nick's take on what it is.
So for me, one of the biggest problems, to answer your question and to finish, because I know I got a bit sidetracked, I usually do, to finish the answer to David's question by speaking of this, I think the biggest problem is the extremities within our way of life. It's either this or it's either that. We see in politics that's happening all the time. So something like reincarnation and regression is a perfect paradigm for this, by way of explaining how we get it wrong and how there's a way of moving forward, because you're either for reincarnation or you're against reincarnation. See left, right, and all the other different extremes in society. But for me, I always had an issue with the idea of coming back because it didn't resonate. It didn't sit well with me. But then I had been regressed and I'd seen something. So, and there's so many people out there who've been hypnotically regressed, who's seen visions of reincarnation. So there's got to be something there. It can't be, fairy dust and imaginary friends, because that's for me a weekend, not a working day. So in terms of, So in terms of the extremes, there's got to be a way that both sides' points are valid and right. Because everything that is spiritual, that is described, has come originally from source. We're the ones who get in the way with it. We're the ones who mess it up with our own perspectives and ideas. So I sat with Spirit, and this is, the bit where I started with poor old Glenda. She's got to sit through it again, but you asked for it, love. When it comes to that, I sat with Spirit, and I was asking no end of questions about it, and they kept saying, wrong question. But this was how me and my group play together, and particularly my main coordinator loves playing. So, wrong question. Wouldn't give me an answer until I asked the right questions. So, long story short, because let's face it, we've all got a life to lead, and we're all not getting any younger. The way it was described to me is this. We are energy, we are spirit. Energy, like on Earth, in the spirit world, is neither created nor destroyed, only transformed. So we existed prior in the spirit world as energy to what we are now. So I had no shape, no form, and I had no memory of Nick Brown to project into people's minds. But I existed as a part of a soul group, a spirit group. And soul groups and spirit groups are what constitute your friends and your helpers and your guides on a varying different levels. And so many people have said when they go into meditation and see their friends and helpers, well, there's the main one standing at the front, and then there's the other ones who help out there in the midground. And then there's all these really shadowy, faceless things in the background that you can't really tell who they are. Well, that's pre-physical existent spirit. There is no reference to give in terms of what we looked like, but we're still helping, we're still watching, we're still guiding. So we get born. We do our job, we help, our ward passes to world of spirit, we have a catch up, and then we decide it's our turn. You know, if I look at the social groupings in which I work at the moment, we're all supposed to travel together. I think I must have laid in by about 10 years because everyone else that I work with is usually a decade older than me, if not more. There's a few exceptions, but mostly I'm on my own on that one. So they always say I slept in. So we all travel together. So we've got those in the world of spirit that we were helping are now helping us. And because they lived a physical life, they've got an identity that they can project. But remember, when we were there watching over them, did not have an identity that we can project. We go and look and see what we were doing before this life. And this is the thing about the right questions. When you're regressed, you're told to go back to before you were born. Not to your previous life, but to before you were born. That was the words that were certainly used on me, and I hear it used so often. Go back to what you were doing. No, do you ask for the previous life?
Yeah.
But
no, I don't. I go where I ask spirit to show you what you need to see.
Even more so this ties in with that. But even if you did say the previous life, you're thinking of your previous existence. So you see what you were doing in the world of spirit. But we are physical. We are limited. We cannot remember living in a 5-dimensional reality. We struggle living in a 3D one. Especially when you add the concept of time making this one a 4-dimensional reality. So we struggle to remember what it was like. We need physical reference. But all the time we were helping people, we were blending and melding with the energy of that person. We were seeing things from their perspective. So when we go back and see what we need to see, what we were doing before we were born or in a former existence, we're witnessing the lives of those we were helping, those we were with, through their eyes. And this concept, since we spoke, I've heard is called spiritual witnessing. So you're in the world of spirit, you're seeing these things happen, but because you had no physical reference in terms of remembering my name is Nick Brown and what I looked like when I was at my happiest, 13 stone and, leather trousers, then that was a fun time. We spoke of it earlier. But when you project yourself from spirit to the physical, you have to remember what you look like. If there was nothing to remember, you can't. So you instantly go to the one thing you can reference, the events and lives of the people that you were helping and watch over and that you loved and cared about, who were on the earth plane. And so that's referred to as spiritual witnessing. What that means is those 27 people that I've met that say that they were Joan of Arc in a former life could very well have been a part of her group. But it also means that whilst we do not believe we, as spiritualists, physically reincarnate every few hundred years, it also means that not only what people who do believe in reincarnation are seeing is real, it's valid and it's important. And the example I use for that, one of the things that I get grumpy about reincarnation is this whole idea that the events that happened then have a huge impact on this current life. When most people are never going to remember it, well, duh, what's the point? It's not. But it can have some carryover, some themes. And the way I describe it is this. If you are responsible for looking after someone, if you give them some advice or guidance, and what was it Mark said in the workshop? A spiritual nudge. If your friends and helpers give you a spiritual nudge, and that turns out not to be the right decision and something goes wrong, you're going to blame yourself for that. So the universe is going to decide you need to realize how difficult it is on the physical world. You need to recognize that you can't always take people's advice. And you've also got to realize that in the physical world, free will and choice matters. And that it doesn't matter how much advice you gave, they were the one decision that was made. And if you experience that, you're going to realize that and heal from that upset of that error. But I don't think that those experiences are things that have a huge amount of impact on this existence at all.
But do you think then, Nick, I want to talk about something that Glenda is a huge believer of, and I'm not quite sure myself. Do you believe then in soul contracts and that we are meant to experience? Obviously, I believe in a lot in free will as well. Where I believe that whatever we're meant to have, we're meant to have, and I don't necessarily link it to soul contracts. So, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think that soul contracts is a thing?
She's grinning because she knows that I'm about to say one word: no. I have issue. I don't have a problem with the concept. I have a problem with the way the concept is, and we've spoken about it, and I'm more in tune with Glenda's view on it than a lot of people's, but I have a huge problem with the term contract, and it's more to do with the way people interpret words.
Yeah.
A contract is something binding and hard and fast. So soul contract sounds quite hard. What I tend to believe is we have waypoints. If you remember when I was talking about my journey.
I believe waypoints and exit points.
Yeah, there are waypoints along the journey, but it doesn't matter if you miss them, because Spirit are playing chess. It's like, okay, miss that one. Right, move it to next week. Move it to 2 years down the road. Nothing is hard and fast and set in stone. And the way I describe it is this. Everyone, for the most part, in some way, tends to agree that we are here to learn and to grow. That is the one thing, other than the fact that there is existence in the spirit world, which a lot of people can't agree on that either, but we at least agree that it happens. But one of the other things that people really strongly agree on is that we're here to learn. So let's look at school. And it is kind of in continuation of the reincarnation thing, but it's about contracts as well. You go to infant school and you learn to spell and you get those silly little old tobacco tins and learn an addiction to the smell of tobacco at the same time as learning what an E is. So you're learning to spell, you're learning to pick up a pen, and you're learning to put jigsaw puzzles together because you bit someone's finger and are in the corner getting in trouble. So those things you learn in infant school. Didn't get too personal there, did I? So you learn that in infant school. When you go to primary school, you don't forget everything you've just learned. You build upon it, and build upon it. When you're finished at primary school, you go to secondary school, and again, you build upon it. You don't forget everything. So that's the reincarnation side. College is where we come to contracts and my thoughts on soul contracts. And this is why I use the term waypoints rather than contracts. When you have done all of your secondary school, you've done all your tests, you got your results. Again, if you want to move to college, it will be building upon, but in a more specific way. You certainly don't forget anything that you've learned. But here's the thing. When you decide which college you're going to, which course you're going to take, you get a prospectus that says, in this course, you will, let's say, for instance, you will learn about healing, you will learn about what you need to do legally, and you will learn about the practice of public healing. You're doing that course because you don't know what it is, but you've got an idea of what you want to do. So you go for whatever best suits your needs. And this for me is where soul contracts come in. For me, it's not a case of if you knew everything before you came from spirit, what you were going to do and how it was all going to pan out, there'd be no need to do it. But you have an idea what you need. So themes and ideas and gestures that would be useful to help you in your specialist subject. That's your waypoints. So you then go to college and you learn the stuff you don't know, which is flexible. You know, for instance, when I said I was teaching drama earlier on, for the first years, I had 2 classes. One was wild and mad and crazy. The other was formal and serious and well behaved. It was the same subject. It was the same course, but they played out very, very differently because of those that were involved. And it's the same for me in terms of soul contracts and coming to Earth to learn. We come to Earth to learn, which means we don't already know what's going to happen, how it's going to happen, or where it's going to happen. We come with, I'd like to learn this, please, and leave it to the universe to throw in a few waypoints and move them if needed. So whilst I'm a bit sloppier on soul contracts maybe than Glenda is, I don't completely, and this is again that whole thing about it either is or it either isn't. I think there's got to be worth in it, but I think it's more in terms of, this is the theme I'd like to learn, this is the course I'd like to take. Spirit, do your worst. But when it comes to the mechanics of free will, we're not just talking about my free will. We're talking about your free will and everyone at home who's watching, their free will. Balancing off that and having the script completely written is impossible. So there's got to be a lot of ad-libbing and making it up as you go along, from Spirit's grand design side as much as our own. And so for me, free will is the ability to say, no, I'm not going to do it that way. Find me another way. It's the ability to have not known what's coming, because where is the joy? Where is the surprise? Where is the intrigue for Spirit on our journey as much as ourselves if we already knew exactly what was going to pan out?
Yeah.
And I personally think, having seen a lot of pain and suffering, experienced a lot of pain and suffering, if the spirit that I work for decided that that had to happen for the benefit of someone to learn, I would stick 2 fingers up and go back to my beans and petrol, because I can't believe that for a second.
Yeah.
All of these negative things are a consequence of living, and Spirit will make use of them by way of trying to help soothe and heal and aid, but not actually make them happen to make someone learn a lesson. I think that, frankly, what's that familiar smell? Ah, yes, bullshit. I cannot believe that an unconditionally loving universe would deliberately set us up to suffer.
Yeah,
but suffering is part of life. So there are ways of it using that suffering to heal and help and aid. So I do believe in a formal 0 hours contract. You know, it's a 0 hours contract. When we come in, we pick up a prospectus and say, I'd like to know about that. I'd like to do that. I'd like to do that. But once you walk on campus, that's it. You are flying by the seat of your pants. And I think that makes it much more of an adventure. So that's the way I see it anyway.
Absolutely. And I was going to add just one more thing, and I'll let Glenda talk in a minute. So another thing that me and Glenda talk about, we talk about free will, Nick. What do you think about people who say, well, Spirit made me do this, or Spirit told me to do that, or Spirit, do you know what I mean? Like, gave me the instructions to do this, or I only work psychically because Spirit told me to do that, or I don't work psychically because Spirit told me to do that. And everyone, do you know what I mean? So what's your...
Yes, I do, because we spent an entire... We spent an entire 4-hour workshop talking about things like this yesterday, actually, because it's very present at the moment in my life. I refer back to the problem with this way of life in terms of there is a principle in the 7 principles, that is called personal bloody responsibility.
Yeah.
What absolutely drives me crazy, and this might surprise people, but what absolutely drives me up the bloody wall, let's be honest, is this idea of putting spirit on a pedestal. They are not on a pedestal. We should respect and treat with, compassion and kindness and appreciation for all the work done. But putting on a pedestal is different. The amount of we have to do it like this because so and so said. We have to do it like this because so and so said. No. I watched a video of Gordon Higginson being interviewed on ATV in 1969, I think. It's either 1969 or 1971. And he was talking about healing. And they said, he said, "Oh, of course, we can't heal everyone." And the interviewer said, "Well, can I just interrupt you on that? Why not?" And he says, "Because we're not good enough." Well, if someone who's put on a pedestal, so he was amazing as a medium, and as a human being, he was hysterical and funny. Someone who made such a big impact can own up and say, "We are not good enough." Then he was focusing on being as good as he possibly can be, rather than spending his time saying, "Spirit can fix everything. Spirit can make everything right. If I do exactly what Spirit tells me, everything will be all right." He didn't say that, so why should we? He and his ilk, the Emma Hardinge Britons, the Morris Barbanells, the Gordon Higginsons, the Harry Edwardses, they wanted each generation of mediums to be better than the last. That was the goal, to drive forward the work. They would not want to be put on a pedestal. They would want us to get off our backsides and do the best we possibly can. And that requires making choices and making hard decisions. And the minute you start saying, "Well, Spirit told me to," that is doing a disservice to Spirit. It is doing a disservice to the pioneers of spiritualism. It's also doing a disservice to the principle that is personal responsibility. But it's also spiritually lazy, I think, is the only way I can put it. It is spiritually lazy because we are the one living this life. We are the one having to earn our stripes.
Yeah.
And if we are letting someone else, no matter where they are, decide for us, then we might as well have let somebody else make use of this meat sack.
Yeah.
Because if we're not going to make use of it, it's a waste of time. But people are so adamant about putting spirit on a pedestal, not just the pioneers, but, the angels and the celestial beings, and we must do what they say. They're not here. We are. And the way I explain that one, this is where being a Christian spiritualist is useful, because whilst I disagree profusely with a lot of the human Christmas baubles that are hung on the Christmas tree of the Bible, I like a nice tasteful one with half a dozen baubles and a simple strip of tinsel. I don't want it covered in absolutely everything and the sink, and that's what's been done to the Bible. The stories of the angels and how they were created, the idea that the reason Lucifer fell is because he was jealous of humanity. Why are we putting the angels on pedestals if they were jealous of us and had the potential to be jealous of us? Because the celestial beings are messengers. They are closer to the universal spirit in terms of creation, in terms of energy, in terms of interaction. They don't have free will. They are an extension of the Great Spirit. We have free will. And that was what, in the stories, Lucifer was jealous of. I'm jealous of your new creation. It's not just because they're your favorite new project, because you're the kind of creationist that's going to, make something new and move on from them as well. But I'm jealous because of what they've got. Freedom. free will. So if the celestial beings and the higher beings can be jealous of us, why should we put them on a pedestal? We should respect them. We should revere the work they do, not their existence. We should be respectful of what it is their role is. But we shouldn't set spirit on a pedestal, because there's also this idea that, you know, the minute you pass, you suddenly become holier than thou and wonderful and all knowing, and that's bull. You know, I've had some right crotchety relatives who've come back from spirit and said some rather unkind things to my mother through a medium on the platform. Now, personal responsibility of the medium is one thing, but that just shows that my grandmother hadn't changed one jot. We evolve and we grow in spirit, but we're not perfect. No one and nothing is perfection, because if we are the universe made manifest trying to figure itself out, then God ain't perfect either, because it needs our perspective and insight to understand itself. So nothing in the universe is perfection. It's the journey towards attempting it that matters most. So putting spirit on a pedestal is a huge, huge mistake, because what it does is it gives us an excuse to be spiritually lazy and not make an effort. You know,
take responsibility when it goes wrong. Spirit's fault.
Spirit did it. Rather than actually thinking, I screwed up there. How am I going to put it right next time? You know, so I'm not a big fan of anything that doesn't require a bit of personal responsibility and a little bit of thinking going on. So I hope that answers your question, darling.
No, it does. I agree as well. Yeah, thank you.
It does our head in, but well, look, we're all going to have different opinions and
absolutely,
but I've always respected and loved your opinion on that topic, and hence why we got on so well, you know, like
we did, you know. giving certain producers a run for their money and aneurysms.
I kept waiting for a certain producer to just roll on, move on. I was just waiting to hear his voice in my head, but thank God I don't have to anymore.
I always knew I'd gone too far. I was like, okay, Nick, change the subject. People want to go home. You know, bless him. I know I was always trouble. And I think we made his life very difficult. Bless him.
We were a lot of trouble.
Yes, we were. It's funny you should say the thing about opinions. I think one thing I have to make absolutely crystal clear, and that's really something passionate for me at the moment, is it's not about disagreeing where the problem comes. It's how we manage that disagreement. You can have two completely different subjects and worldviews, but so long as you both respect that you have the right to that, everything can be fine. It's not about the disagreement. The disagreement isn't what causes the problem. It's how that disagreement and how that fundamental difference in principle is managed. You know, I can completely disagree. Like my deacon Eunice, bless her heart, we come from very similar backgrounds, but processed in very different ways, and we have absolute paint stripping discussions. You know, literally tomorrow morning I've got to go back to the village hall and paint the walls because we had a conversation, the paints all fell off again. But as we finish the conversation, we laugh our heads off with each other and don't take it too seriously. I think that's the really important thing. The disagreement is not the problem. It's how that disagreement is managed. You know, if you respect each other's right to be different, you can't tend to go far wrong. So, you know, I think that I had to just, when you mentioned that, I just had to throw that in because I think that's a fundamental for me. You know, it's not not the disagreement, it's the management of it.
We always say, like, you know, everyone has a different opinion, and David and I are always saying these are our opinions, is what we feel like. And hey, you know, no one has to believe it or go with it. You have to trust your discernment. And I just have to
Mm.
say a quick hello to Eunice. I love Eunice. She is such a
Yes,
beautiful lady. So Nick,
certainly
back
is.
onto mediumship. What do you think makes a good medium?
Well, you just used the word actually in terms of, I think for me, one of the most important ones is discernment. Discernment is one of my new favorite words. I go through phases where I have a favorite word. You know, for 2 years it was kindness. Then people started buying badges for me. I got to say, one Christmas, one of my congregation bought me a pin badge because I'd spent the whole year saying, just be kind. She bought me this pin badge that said, don't be a dick, just be kind. And she made me wear it throughout the whole service. And I've still got it. You know, so I do go through shifts and phases of focus. And at the moment, discernment is really important. The way we discern spirit, the way we are discerning with that information, not just taking things on face value, not adding our own embellishment to that information, but most importantly, being your own medium. I get really, really grumpy. I do get grumpy a lot, but I hide it mostly. Mostly. I get really, really grumpy when people say, I'd like to be X medium. Why? They already exist.
Mm.
You know, be your own self. Steal from other mediums. You know, I like the way David works. I like the way Glenda does this. I like the way Nick does that. I'm going to steal all three and use it in my own way. And that way, see, this is the thing that I think is why we get on so well in our area. There are 3 churches within 3 miles that operate on a Thursday night. So, sorry, 4 miles. 3 churches within 4 miles that operate on a Thursday night in our area. There are 4 churches within 4 miles that operate within that 4 mile radius once a fortnight. And there is another one that works less than a quarter of a mile down the road from the village hall once a month. We all keep going, we all operate, and it's because we're all different and we're all unique. You've got an independent, you've got an SNU, you've got the Christian Spiritualist, you've got Sacred Souls, which is very much more interested and in tune with the pagan and the independent way of working. You've got someone who does it as a ticket demo night, and there's maybe a prayer but no philosophy, it's just mediumship wall to wall. We're all very, very different and focus on our own thing, so we keep going. And I think that's what mediums need to do. Stop worrying about what the Joneses are doing and start worrying about what you're doing. Stop worrying about being perfect and worry about being accurate. You know, one of the things, because I do a lot of development, and where I see people going wrong, and I try and encourage them gently. And sometimes it feels like I'm trying to pull them back, but it isn't. It's a cautionary tale. You know, okay, so I've got a lady here and she's showing me a door. And that door is green with a red scratch in it. And there is a little mark on the, and they become so focused on the minutiae of the detail, they will start losing the direction of the whole point of the communication, which was the lady who showed the door. So I think it's important to drive for extra detail, but I think people get lost in the minutiae of detail. Is the person going to remember the scratch on the door? Probably not, but they will remember how the scratch happened. So if you focus on that, I think the individuality of the medium is important. Certainly not getting lost in the minutiae of the detail, but remembering, for me, that every message is different and that they can't all be on a set path.
Right.
You know, the amount of people who come to Littleport for the first time and say, so my philosophy is 11 and a half minutes. And my mediumship, sometimes I don't manage 10 minutes. Is that all right? And I'm like, what do I care? You know, you're working for spirit, not me. You are giving what information spirit provides, not what I want you to provide. And so when it comes to giving a message, perfect example, 2-3 weeks ago, this medium, it was Sue Hind. Sue Hind is amazing as a medium. And the fact that she's also deaf and struggling to hear the recipient speaking, it just boggles belief. Sometimes maybe I think that not being able to hear the recipient is a blessing rather than a curse. But when she's working, she's giving this message to someone over there and she goes, give me a second. You just need to come to you. There's a gentleman standing behind you, passed recently, talking about being in a bakery. He just wants to be remembered to you, and I'll leave that with you. They'd just come back from his funeral. That was all that recipient needed in that moment. That doesn't fit a structure, but it was what was needed. So I think in order to be a good medium, you can't be afraid to do your own thing. Do it your own way. Be different. Be unique. Be wild if you want to. Always be respectful of the moment. You know, you can be funny and silly, but when that serious emotional moment comes, you need to bring it down and just be respectful of the emotion of the recipient and the moment. So each message is different, each moment is different, and each medium is different. And so long as you follow those paths that are provided to you within the work to be yourself, notice and be aware of the moment and react accordingly, I think that's what makes a good medium.
Yeah.
How would you then? So if I go back to the example about and I agree with you what you just said, completely, because I've had it. You mustn't work direct. You must tune into the person and go direct and all that bollocks. But anyhow, I work as I work, and that's it. And so I'm coming back to that the door example you gave there. Now, how would you then counteract the argument that you should give that information? Because there are mediums out there who will say, if you just say, I've got a lady here and she's showing me a door, and then you move on, there are mediums, and this could maybe a them thing, who say, then you're just surface skimming. You've not given any information. But other mediums would say, well, what does the door look like? That scratch is going to be important, and the colour of it's important. So go into that. So, and the same with that lady who just said about the bakery. There would be some mediums who will say that's not enough information. That's like a 30-second thing. But other mediums like you would say, well, that's what they needed, which I would agree with. But you've always got that person who's going to say, well, that's not enough, and you need to get that. You need to get a name. That's a sore point. Don't talk to Glenda about it.
I was just about to say it.
So how would you counteract all those arguments? I mean, I agree with what you said. Just be yourself.
Yeah.
But there are people in their early development who will be affected by people who say, that's not enough. You need to give more of that. You need to delve into that. Do you know what I mean?
Right. So I have had this conversation, and the first thing I will say to them is, okay, show me how it's done. Because half the time they can't.
Yeah.
The second thing I would say is that if they can, great, that's how they work. Well done. Do not dictate to people how they are going to work. Guide, direct, offer options and alternatives, but you do not dictate to us. Eunice, bless her heart, she's got a saying, we are guided, not taught, with Nick. Because I can't tell you what your relationship with God is. I certainly can't tell you how you're going to work as a medium, but I can offer you the tools. So everyone's going to work different. In terms of that minutiae of detail, there's something that I look for, and there's no polite way of putting it. When you see a medium thrutching, all they're going to do is end up dropping one. Because it's that moment of, go back and look at that. Go back and look at that. When you see the medium or the student going, thrutching. They're forcing it, which means they will start embellishing it themselves rather than relaxing into the energy and letting spirit give you what they want. We are not mind readers, we are mind receptors. And what I mean by that is they have to send to us what they want us to see. Our mind then interprets it. Sometimes we get it wrong because we're going for that minutiae of detail. Yes, the fact that there is a scratch on the door, fine. But don't go beyond that if you have to force it. Because the minute you start forcing it, you are going to risk making it up and making it fit. That's worse than skimming. Because, for example, in the example of the Paul the Bull Baker, bless his heart, he was famous at Littleport. He was in the healing book for months. In the example of Paul the Bull Baker, the recipient will tell me, and did tell me several times actually, that was all I needed. That was all I wanted. We work for spirit first, the recipient second, and any individual last.
Yeah.
So we as teachers and guiders and developers need to know our place. And our place is to guide and direct and provide options. For example, I am rubbish with names. I'm terrible with names. I can't remember my own name half the time. How am I going to get names from spirit? You know?
Same as me. I'm the same.
You know, and
tell me your name 2 minutes ago. I'm like, who was that? What they say?
Yeah.
What was their name?
But what I am good with is emotion. So that's where I focus my work. The emotion of the moment, the attitude and the personality. You know, I told you I did drama. I was also a theatrically trained Shakespearean actor, don't you know? Shakespearean thespian. So I've always been able to put on a show, to be able to take on board the emotions of a personality and portray that, and spirit have used that so that when I've got someone coming through, I'll start moving like them. That the head will go down, the shoulders will go down, or the knees will bend, or the hips will go up. And when I get someone who's 12 stone and made of sheer muscle, it feels amazing. But I will always reflect that side. So you focus on the bits that you're good at, because if every medium, you spoke earlier, Glenda, about churches being different in Australia. They're very different in America, and a lot of the affiliated churches in America will have a minister who is also the medium, and they will very rarely have visiting mediums. If everybody worked the same, that would be fine, but we don't. One of the best things about being in a spiritualist church in the UK in particular is the different vibrant colours of different styles of mediumship. But if we all work the same, there'd be no point of paying, 50 quid to someone come 100 mile or 10 quid someone 15 mile down the road. Variety is the spice of life. So to those people that would say it's skimming, no, it's picking up what spirit want us to have. And the more we push, the more likely we are to interfere with and change it and get a no. Not that I have a problem with no's. I think no's are brilliant. That's another thing for mediums. Don't be afraid of the word no. Going back to what you said, David, about the accusation of skimming, one of the other things that we're accused of is mind reading, of course, which if it were true, I don't know about you, I'd be at some wonderful casino/strip club with some huge bloke standing on there with a shirt off, dishing out the cards, playing blackjack and raking it in. Because if it was mind readers, then that's what I'd be doing, not reuniting loved ones. When it comes to mediumship, it's subtle, it's special, and it's unique and individual. But that accusation of being a mind reader really, really winds me up. But that's why no's are good, because if you go to someone and say, you would understand this, that, and that, no. I actually had it at Cambridge. I went to this lady, bless her heart. I've got a lady here. She looks around about your age. I'm seeing blonde hair. I feel that I'm, an adopted sister or an acquaintance kind of relationship. I know that you two used to go rocking about, and I can see a lot of drinking going on. Would you understand this? Yes. So I made the connection. She knew who it was. I gave a bit more, and towards the end I said, you would understand that there's something to do with you brushing her hair, playing with her hair. No. Okay, give me a second. And this woman was adamant. She says, I can feel her hand against my hair. What I'm being shown, what I'm being told, what I'm feeling is you putting your fingers and running it through her hair and pulling it back. I don't know whether it was to do with the drinking or to do with her health or to do with what, but I just can see you running your fingers through her hair. No, absolutely not. I was about to hit my number 3. When I hit 3 no's, I step back and change the subject. I'm not going to force it on you. I'm not a carrier bag medium. I don't tell people to take it home with them. They can't remember, they can't figure it out, then there ain't no point having it in a carrier bag in the corner festering. So I withdraw it and say, well, if you remember in the future, just send up a thought and you owe me a tea. But I was about to step back when she said, well, other than the fact that I used to cut hair for her because I'm a hairdresser. Number one, Lynn was right. Recipients do need their own circle. But number 2, recipients don't remember everything straight away. Yeah. If we were mind reading, she wouldn't have said no. And no's can prove that you're not mind reading. When that recipient sits there and goes, yes, I know what you're talking about now. That's the moments to enjoy. And that's the other advice I'd give to mediums. Go out there and enjoy it. The moment it becomes a chore, give it up. There's a difference between confidence and nerves and uncertainty to sheer mind-numbing misery. Lack of confidence, uncertainty, nerves, 27 years on the platform, I'm still kecking it as I step onto the platform, especially in a new church.
Yeah.
But the minute it becomes a chore, take a break or give it up, because it will affect the way you work. And congregations are like animals. They can smell fear. Half the time there's half of the congregation that have been sitting in that same seat for 50, 60 years. They've seen mediums come, they've seen mediums go. They know more about mediumship than half of us have forgotten. But they've never done it themselves. But they can smell fear and they know it and they will react to it. So, enjoy it. And the minute it becomes so much that it's not enjoyable, step back, take a break. It's not an easy life. I think all 3 of us can understand that one. It is unforgiving. It is unthanking. But those moments when it's joyful, funny, and liberating, that's what makes it worthwhile. So enjoy it. Enjoy every damn moment of it and be you. That's all I can say, really.
Love it.
That's all I can say, really. That's a joke, isn't it?
No, it's a lovely way to end that segment. Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, and I just wanted to throw in some funny things in there because it's been quite heavy and serious with some of the conversations. So, Nick, I ask everyone that comes on, do you believe pineapple belongs on pizza? Oh, he's had to think about it. This is a first.
I actually like it, but I've also eaten pizza in Italy, and I have a great deal of respect for Italian pizzas. And if I were to see any of my friends who make Italian pizza, they would lynch me if I said yes. So all I will say is, if you're in Italy, avoid pineapple on pizza. But if you enjoy it, slap it on because I love the taste of pineapple. I really do. But there's always a jar. There's always a jug of pineapple juice in the fridge, fresh, untapped, ready every day. I love pineapple.
There you go.
Awesome. Well, there you go. I have another one that I actually came up with. Um, if you could pick one superpower, going back in time, freezing time, or something else completely different, what would it be and why?
Oh, being a sci-fi and fantasy
I
geek,
know
I
you
have
love
spent forever thinking of this. And the sad truth is there's not one deliberate preference. There are individual ones that I would choose depending on how I got the power and why. If it was for the benefit of others, it would be time travel. I would be out there in my TARDIS fixing things that I think should never have happened and doing my best to put things right. If it was for me and freedom, it would be flying. The idea of flying, just when I was a kid, I used to dream about being able to fly, but it always hurt. It was an effort. You know, it was almost like my wings were flapping too hard and it would hurt. But I would love to fly. But I've got to be honest. We've spoken about what I would actually do, and that would be telepathy.
Oh, yeah.
I would love to be a telepath, to be able to not only receive people's thoughts but also project thoughts. So there is a particular TV show that I am a fan of. You knew it had to come up and you gave me the perfect opportunity. Babylon 5 made me who I am today. My spirituality, my sense of humor, and my weirdness. I absolutely idolize Babylon 5. And the fact that the creator, Joe Michael Straczynski, is now working in the United Kingdom gives me joy. But yeah, there was a race, a subspecies of the human race that were telepaths, and they could read people's minds, surface thoughts. A deeper scan would be noticeable, so you couldn't invade people's privacy unknown. But you could also project images and thoughts into people's heads. And I love the idea of being able to project feelings and emotions and thoughts into people's heads. So say, for instance, you've got someone having a panic attack. You could project calm and peace and love into their mind and bring down that panic attack and calm them. Someone who's really, really angry, you could project calmness in. Plus, there's also the naughty side of that as well.
I was waiting for it.
That's one of the reasons. I did consider X-ray vision, but I thought that would be a bit too extreme. At least telepathy has usefulness. But the idea of being able to project an emotion to counterbalance a negative one would be so wonderful. But also, to be able to get someone's permission to read their thoughts and know how they truly feel about you. Especially because I know I come across as a bit of a gobby what's it, and I come across as someone who doesn't really care what people think. I do. I am one of the world's biggest worriers, and if people say to me, that was really, really good, I don't always believe them. So if I were to be able to say, care to let me, get some proof on that, and then just peek, and to know that people are being that would be great in terms of confidence, because you could do that in terms of confidence for other people. Showing people how you feel about them when they don't believe you would be such a healing tool. For someone to sit there and say, oh, you don't really think I'm that good. Hang on a minute. Oh, you really do. Just think of the healing power that would be had. So really, for the work, for the overall view, it would have to be telepathy. But if it was me just letting loose, it would have to be soaring like an eagle over over various beaches, I suppose, if I was, feeling a
The
little bit
Grand
naughty.
Canary Islands, I guess.
Well, actually, there's a nice beach in Lowestoft that I wouldn't mind getting an aerial view of, but that's a story for another day. There aren't that many beaches like that in East Anglia, so you got to get it while you can. But yeah, I think flying if it was fun, but telepathy if it was a tool of the work.
Oh, interesting. Right, last question, Nick, which we ask everybody as a last question on our podcast. So, if today were your last day on Earth, if this was your last conversation, what legacy would you like to leave behind?
I've done a lot of thinking about this one. Not because I think I'm going anywhere, but there have been moments when I have thought I was going somewhere. I've always said that if I can help one person to be stronger and better, then I can die happy. What would I want my legacy to be? For people to recognize and appreciate each other, because that's the main aim of my work, to embolden and strengthen individuals. So if Littleport were to continue as a beacon of fun and laughter and individuality, if the Alliance were to continue as a non-financial umbrella of mutual respect and support, where people can come together and not go to extremes, but break down barriers. There's that old imagery of people meeting over the garden fence. Well, I want the fence gone. I just want the fence gone. And that's the main aim of my work. So if my legacy could be that I soothed a few hearts, soothed a few minds, and made a few people less extreme in their thoughts and directions, I'm happy. But for me, it's not about it being my legacy. I don't care if people remember that Nick did it. Just that it's happening is all that matters to me. And if, I always remember that whole statement of the people whose lives you touch aren't the only people whose lives you touch. The lives you touch others, and those lives others. So you might think you've helped one person, but over the course of a lifetime, it could be that one person could end up being an influence on hundreds or thousands. To know that I have helped one person feel better, happier, and stronger, and more independent and themselves, that's enough for me. And so long as that work continues that we've started here in relation to upliftment, laughter, fun, and free thinking, then I don't care if my name's attached to it, so long as the work continues. And that's it.
Thank you.
Thanks.
But so long as there are a few go-go boys on my coffin at the funeral, that would be a minimum requirement. But mostly for the congregation, but because I'd be up there watching from above again.
Well, thank you, Nick.
Oh, thanks, Nick. Thanks for coming on and spending time with us, and opening up different points of view and what you believe in. And it's important to hear that and to recognize that we're all unique and we're all allowed to be. So
absolutely. No, thank you for both for having me. It's been so long since we've all been together, and it was just when the message came, it's like, oh yes, I've got to make sure that it's one of the days that, because we have every other Monday we have a debate. So really, this is no different for me on a Monday, sitting behind the Zoom screen, holding court and getting through copious amounts of Pepsi Max and the occasional expletive is my usual Monday morning. So it was a great pleasure to have the opportunity to speak to you both and be grilled by you. You know, it was
Yes.
wonderful. And
Well,
of course, before we even started, a few fanciful memories of days of
yeah,
yore and mine before we were spiritualists. You know,
that's it.
um,
Small world, as
it
they say.
really is. It really,
Yeah.
really is.
Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure,
Yeah.
Nick. Thank you very much
Thank
for
you.
coming on, sharing your wisdom. And thank you all to the listeners for tuning in for today's episode as well. Hope you found that interesting and insightful and a bit inspiring as well. But yeah, enjoy the rest of your day,
And
people. Oh, go on,
we
go on.
just want to mention, don't forget to grab your tickets for the Christmas special that the three of us are doing.
Yes, actually, yeah, good reminder, Glenda. Yeah, so on the 14th of December, people, myself, Glenda, and our fairy godfather, Bill Hughes, psychic medium, are doing an online Christmas special in the Spirit Lounge. Tickets are available now
Wow.
through my website, and we'll put the links in the comment note description section, wherever you want to find it. But yeah, we've got. It might look like it's an early time. It's 10:30 a.m. UK, but we've done that to keep in mind our Australian listeners as well. So that's the reason for the time
Definitely.
difference there. So it'll be 7:30 in Australia, the eastern side, I think it is, and then 10 a.m. in the UK. So that's why might seem quite early on a Sunday, but it's just to keep make sure we've got our Australian listeners included in that as well. But that's it. I'm just rabbiting on now, aren't I? So
It's no different
again,
than going to church, though, is it, darling? You know, people used to get up for 10 o'clock church on Sunday morning
yeah,
anyway.
that's
So,
true.
you
So
know,
yeah,
as
okay.
they don't go
Well,
to church anymore, they can come to your thing. So buy a ticket. You know?
absolutely. And it's going to be recorded, and I have said that in the post anyway. It's going to be recorded, so we're going to publish it as a podcast episode, but just in an audio format, not video. So you won't be seen, but you will be heard, obviously, if you get a reading. But it'll be hopefully a nice, festive event. So come and join us. So with that said, I'm going to stop rabbiting on now, and thank you all again for listening, and we'll see you again in the next episode.
Bye.
Bye, bye, bye.
Thank you so much for joining us in the Spirit Lounge today. We hope you enjoyed the discussion.
Yes, and if there's a spiritual topic you'd like us to discuss, or if there's a spiritual question you'd like our input into, then please send those topics and questions to us at glenda-marie1@hotmail.com, and we will get to them as soon as possible.
Lastly, if you could like and share this podcast, as well as leaving us a comment or review about what you thought, then that would really help us out and we'd be very grateful.
We would indeed. But it's bye from me.
And it's bye from me.
Join us again soon in the Spirit Lounge.